An Aryan brother is without a care. He walks where the weak and heartless won't dare. And if by chance he should stumble or lose control, his brothers are there to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. He need not ask, fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brothers still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith, in each brother's heart will always be a place. So a brother I am and will always be, even after my life is taken away from me. I'll lie down content, knowing I stood, head held high, walking proud in the brotherhood.
People that are older and know what time it is know it's just business.
Yeah. Greetings and welcome back. It's your host, Gabe Morales. We've been covering Aryan Brotherhood members over the past 6 decades or so. Before we get started, I'd like to clean up an error I made on my B Last Names Part 2 video. The picture that I showed of Joe Viking Brimage was actually that of his younger brother, Bobby. You can kind of tell in these police mugshots of the juvenile duo taken in 1962 that Bobby has lighter hair, blonde. Next to Bobby Brimage, in this follow-up shot on the left is longtime AB hitman Wayne Bulldog Ladd, and on the right is AB member Wayne Odom. I do apologize, as I had their records and pictures combined in one file. What can I say? I'm not the best organizer and have thousands of prison gang photos. The list that I'm working from on this series has over 3,000 Aryan Brotherhood members and associates. And while I think I'm somewhat of an AB expert, I still make mistakes sometimes. And remember, I don't just track the big four in Cali. I track prison gangs in all 50 states, as well as hundreds of street gangs all across the United States, and even try to keep tabs on them worldwide. If you're really interested in that, check out my college textbook. It's a little pricey, but I only get a small cut from the sales of that book. The publishers and the colleges make most of the money. Also, I thought at first it was a slip-up by a commenter who just said NF advisory or something to that effect. I wasn't sure what he meant and just assumed he was talking about past Aryan Brotherhood and Western Familiar beefs. Then a second comment was made that I had the previous NF series posted in air right after I make my spiels about Aryan Brotherhood members. YouTube will not allow me to edit and insert new material once it has been published online, but they will allow me to delete clips. So I'll go back in soon and cut out those few seconds. And from here on out, we'll try to ensure that I have the right advisory posted. As most of you know, I do try to respond to your respectful comments and suggestions in a timely manner. I may not always agree with you, but do appreciate the feedback as it helps me improve this channel and keeps my books and classes straight as well. Today we'll cover the C last names, as in clicked up with the brand. I'll start off with John Butch Calfee, who was an Aryan Brotherhood member in the early 1970s. In 1971, Aryan Brotherhood member Billy Buzzard Harris was stabbed 8 times in Soledad by 2 blacks who got stabbed themselves in a fight, allegedly by Harris, who got shot in the groin by a tower guard. In that incident, 3 blacks were killed, which I'll talk in more detail about in the BGF series. 3 years later, Harris was attacked in San Quentin by 4 to 5 blacks and stabbed in the neck. His so-called fellow Aryan brother, Butch Calfee, B number 34913, was born on February 15, 1948, allegedly hid in his cell. So he was later strangled, beaten, and almost stabbed to death by Ronald Scalp Hunter Krueger and by Robert Blinky Griffin, who was actually Calfee's sponsor. Oftentimes, these prison gangs will ask the sponsor if they are within reach to take out a prospect who has failed the prison gang. For that incident, Blinky Griffin was given his first life sentence. John Butch Calfee soon dropped out of the Brotherhood. There was John Campbell, who I believe was Alabama, but may have also had ties to Fontana, aka Felony Flats. I show he was an AB member with BOP number 08020-076. Campbell is mentioned several times over the course of the Aryan Brotherhood's history, and he was said to have been involved, along with Cleo Roy and John Greshner, in the killing of Tommy Lamb at USP Marion on October 15, 1988. Evidently, Lamb, seen here, fell afoul of the AB. He was choked to death, and then there was a noose placed around his neck to make it look like it was a suicide. The order was allegedly given by Blue Norris, Blinky Griffin, John Stinson, and Barry Mills because Lamb had earlier refused to do a hit. and was considered to be a weak link. John Campbell was tried in the 2002 RICO case, along with multiple other Aryan Brotherhood members, and sent to the ADX, where I show he died in July of 2005, not long after the trial. There was James Scratch Cantley, who was out of Ontario, which is part of the Inland Empire. I show he was also close to Nazi lowriders and had a tattoo of white power, which is very typical for these guys. I show that he was incarcerated in the Youth Authority in 1972 and then got popped for assault with a deadly weapon in 1978, where he was given B number 98290. I show he paroled in 1981, but then came back in an assault case in 1983. He then was housed at San Quentin prison and was found with multiple shanks on him. He paroled again in 1988, but was returned on a robbery beef in 1994. He got out again, but then was popped on a dope case in 2002, whereby he was given T number 55218. I show that he paroled in 2004 and currently is not in custody. There was a Michael, aka Silent Mike Carmichael, and of San Bernardino. I showed that he was one of the AB members in the late 1960s when he had B number 33451. Michael Carmichael and Aryan Brotherhood members Tank Noah, Buzzard Harris, Snake Eyes Mendrin, and Blinken Griffin all testified in the trial concerning the murder of former NF member Fred Charles Castillos. He may have had a son named Brian Youngster Carmichael, who had C number 70246. I recall Youngster, aka Heavy Metal, very clearly because he would often wear a bandana, and I had him for a time period on my dining crew. I believe at that time he was considered to be a Nazi lowrider, which were growing very strong, especially in Southern California. And later on, he became part of the Brand Busters and a supporter of the NLR FDBs. But I show is currently not in custody. There was a Richard Springtime Carpenter. I show that he was with the Hells Angels, but also an associate of the Aryan Brotherhood when he had A number 92009. Understand that he was housed with Curtis Price in 1978 at San Quentin, but had dropped out by the year 1986. There was Victor Carafa, who I show was an AB member dating back to the early days. I show he got popped on a robbery beef in 1966, and later on was given B number 9519. One of the earliest B numbers. I show he paroled in 1979, but got popped for a firearms charge in 1980. He was released on that, but came back under burglary charge in 1987 and paroled in 1988. He got popped on another firearms charge in 1992, and while awaiting trial, escaped from Sacramento County with another AB member named Gerald Gallant that he had been friends with at Folsom Prison in the mid-1970s. Gallant engaged Sacramento deputies in an ambush, and Carafa took off with him, but they were soon captured. In 1993, Victor Carafa then was sent to the federal BOP under number 87716-011. I show that he was housed at Marion in 1995 and was housed at other institutions, but was deceased by October 2007. An interesting thing about Victor Carafa is understanding his wife Joan assisted with Brenda Moore in the escape of Robert Scully from Sonoma County in March of 1995. During that escape, Scully killed Sonoma deputy Frank Trejo. There was a Robert Bobby Castillo Jr., who was from Fresno, who I believe is Native American, but there have been several natives belonging to or aligned with the Aryan Brotherhood and Mexican Mafia in the past. Not a lot of people know about Bobby, but he grew up with Aryan Brotherhood shot caller Eddie Snell Hebley and knew many of Hebley's family. He also knew many Aryan Brotherhood and Mexican Mafia heavyweights back in the day. He ended up being locked up in the BOP and was housed at Lompoc. And according to court records, in September 1977, Castillo was involved in an altercation, and an inmate, Michael Flores, was stabbed during the incident and died a short time later as a result of stab wounds. Castillo spent that morning getting a tattoo in another inmate's quarters, and he eventually heard that Flores wanted to fight him. According to Castillo, he gave a knife which had been offered to him by another inmate to his friend Thomas Buzz Miller. Buzz was a very good tattoo artist and did most of the ink on Bobby, as well as did a lot of work on guys like Aryan Brotherhood Commissioner Barry Mills. As Castillo and Miller returned to their unit, they were confronted by Flores and his group of supporters in the hallway. Castillo was also with his crew. At this point, according to Castillo's version, Buzz Miller handed him the knife. As Flores' group approached, Castillo replied that he didn't really want to fight and appears to not have been the aggressor. After a brief discussion with Castillo, Flores returned to his group and then came back to Castillo and kicked him in the head. According to the government's reports and alleged evidence, another inmate grabbed Flores from behind and restrained him as Castillo proceeded to inflict at least 3 stab wounds. The scuffle only lasted a few seconds, and Castillo dropped the knife almost immediately. A jury found Castillo guilty of manslaughter and conveying a weapon. He appealed his case, but his conviction was confirmed by the Ninth Circuit of Appeals in California. Some of you might be wondering whatever happened to Bobby. Well, I'm happy to say that after he was freed from prison, he became involved in gang prevention intervention work. Bobby was invited to speak as an expert on the administration of justice and unfair incarcerations at the United Nations panel in Madrid, Spain, having attended numerous sessions at the UN on torture, arbitrary detention, and on other issues involving indigenous peoples. I believe Bobby has a new book in the works that still resides in Europe, but he has not forgotten his roots while staying there. He has also been very involved in the movement to free BOP prisoner Leonard Peltier. There's Daniel Kavanaugh, who is out of Van Nuys, which is in the San Fernando Valley, located just north of Los Angeles. He was a very early Aryan Brotherhood member with B number 30485, and I understand was involved in the 1972 war that the Aryan Brotherhood and the MA had against the Nuestra Familia. During one of those incidents, Nuestra Familia Mexicana co-founder Bruce Morgan, along with Juan Manzanas Colon, who was later involved in the murder of MA icon Shai Cadena, in an altercation with Dan Kavanaugh and Stephen Trashman Hadley, who was also affiliated with the ABs, on August 27th, 1972, at CIM's Palm Hall. I then understand he was housed at the federal BOP and, along with Ron Perrin and Alan Reed, killed former La Costa Nostra member and informant Vincent Papa of the French Connection fame in June of 1977. Dan Kavanaugh had put in a lot of work for the ABs, but evidently it was not enough. AB shot caller Barry Mills stated that Kavanaugh at one time had given information to the FBI about him concerning some bank robberies. Fellow AB shot caller Thomas Silverstein is said to have sent Kavanaugh some heroin by an inmate orderly or tier tender, and Kavanaugh overdosed in Building 63, aka The Hole, at USP Leavenworth on November 19, 1979. I believe he had a brother named Donald, aka Boston, who had CDC number B3670 and was also housed at San Quentin with Dan in 1972. There was Thomas Slim Center, who was out of Long Beach. I was told by my mentor, Robert Malcolm Rill, that this guy was a major dope dealer and had very close ties to Joe Morgan. In fact, I understand that the mayor of Tijuana had burned Slim on a dope deal, and that Joe Morgan was involved in a plot to kill that mayor. I haven't been able to find any hard documentation on that, but I believe that story to be true. He's seen here with Frog Valdez at San Quentin in the early 1970s. Frog was involved in the infamous shoe war when the MA battled the Nuestra Familia Mexicana. I show that Slim paroled in early 1975, and I believe was involved in a homicide in Florida in 1978, but had paroled from there in 1989. If still alive, he would be 80 years old. There was David Allen Chance, aka Country, who was a longtime Aryan Brotherhood member, going back to the early 1970s when he was incarcerated on a homicide charge under B number 40557. I show that he was one of the ABs who okayed the hit of Richard Barnes in early 1983, who was the father of Stephen Barnes, who I covered in part 1 of the B Last Names episode. I show that he was housed at San Quentin in 1985 and was housed at Pelican Bay for many years, where he was on the council and then made a commission member. He was charged on the AB RICO case and housed at Terminal Island in 2006 under BOP number 25050-112. I believe then he was returned to the SHU, but then when they kicked all the guys out of the SHU around 2015, 2016, he was transferred to general population, as many of the heavy hitters were. And he was housed at Kern Valley State Prison in the year 2020 to 2021 and was charged on the most recent AB RICO case, but I show currently is not in CDC or BOP custody, so I believe he is out to court. It will be interesting to see what happens as far as changes in the federal and California state Aryan Brotherhood commissions and councils. There's not a lot of these old guys left, but then again, the Aryan Brotherhood has always prided itself in being very select, very small, but very deadly. And so, I hate to tell you, but I'll have to stop right there We still have a lot of names to cover under the C last name. I hope you've enjoyed this content so far and continue supporting this channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with your friends if you think they might be interested. For now, this is Gabe Morales signing off for gangsters, cops, and politicians. An Aryan brother is without a care. He walks where the weak and heartless won't dare. And if by chance he should stumble or lose control, his brothers are there to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. He need not ask, fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brothers still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith, in each brother's heart will always be a place. So a brother I am, and will always be, even after my life is taken away from me. I'll lie down content, knowing I stood, head held high, walking proud in the brotherhood.
People that are older know what time it is, man. It's just business.
Yeah.